Estaremos lá torcendo. We go. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I call to order the Ambassadorial-level meeting of the Peacebuilding Commission dealing with São Tomé and Príncipe. I would like to, first of all, introduce our speakers today. I have the honor and pleasure to introduce and present distinguished Dr. Vera Kravid, Justice Minister and of Parliamentary Affairs and Women's Affairs of São Tomé and Príncipe. Her presence here today with us and her participation shows the value that the government of São Tomé and Príncipe attaches to the PBC and strengthens the important role of that the Commission has been playing in supporting the national peace-building priorities. We also have General Marcel Mapongo with us. The Commissioner for Peace and Security of the Economic Community of the States of Central Africa, from Libreville, and will be talking to us about peace-building affairs in São Tomé and Príncipe. We also have Mr. Parfait Onanga and Yanga, that everybody knows here in the United Nations, who is the special representative of the Secretary General to the African Union and in charge ad interim for the office dealing with Central Africa, and he will be joining us from Addis Ababa. We'll also have Madame Nadia Braganza, member of the Women Lawyers Association, joining us from São Tomé, who will be speaking to us about the role of civil society in implementing the national prevention strategy. And as normally within the PBC, we also will be listening to Madame Elizabeth Speha, Assistant Secretary General for Peacebuilding and Peace Support, who will take the floor after the other speakers. If I may, I'd now like to move on to some preliminary comments in my quality as Chair. Minister, Excellencies, when the international community adopted the Pact for the Future in 2024, a lot of people spoke about prevention. São Tomé and Príncipe itself moved forward to action. And in May 2025, the President Carlos Villanova presented your national prevention strategy to prevent conflicts in that brotherly country, the first state to make that step in the committee. In doing that, São Tomé and Príncipe not only honored a commitment, it put a face on prevention and inspired our whole commission. That gesture in itself incorporates the promise that we made here in New York, namely to make prevention not just a slogan, but a practice. Not just an intention, but a national strategy. And it calls on everyone to ensure that our partners, that's us, are present. São Tomé and Príncipe made this choice with determination and courage, and it arranged national consultation with civil society, women and young people, and its strategy is fully inclusive based on joint assessment carried out since 2023 with the United Nations and the countries of Central Africa. And it is on a strong regional foundation. And those countries are here. With you, Madam. And the security sector reform now has a clear roadmap for the modernization and professionalization of the army and police, ensuring respect for human rights. A national independent commission for human rights is being established to provide access to justice, and maritime security is also being addressed, showing the earnestness of the state for the rule of law. Madam Minister is going to talk to us shortly about the success stories of her country, but also speaking frankly, I think, about the challenges that still remain. And this is quite correct, because as a credible strategy, it isn't just about achievements. It's also how one addresses these challenges and weaknesses and overcomes them. This transparency is what we expect of earnest, serious states. São Tomé and Príncipe is a member of the United Nations. And has been subject to economic shocks that are not its fault, and it's for that reason that it's essential that we provide our assistance. To that, we have a major democratic event coming up, the presidential elections in July and in September, legislative and local elections. So all of those things are benchmarks of democracy and must be supported in terms of preventive democracy. A country that succeeds should never be a victim of its own success. A country that succeeds should be assisted further, not less. Secondly, it should consolidate its achievements and not just sit on its laurels. Thirdly, it should invest in its success, because every dollar invested in prevention helps to solve crises in the future tenfold. And this is why we are meeting here. São Tomé and Príncipe has done its part with regard to national ownership, and it's up to us now to do our part by mobilizing political, technical and financial support that is necessary to strengthen the resource mobilization plan for peace building, and also by supporting the security sector reform. I would therefore invite member states and the international financial institutions and regional development banks and all partners of the Commission to assist São Tomé and Príncipe because the country has been doing so much for prevention. We will continue to be mobilized alongside this country, this brotherly country, at each stage of the implementation of its strategy, so that São Tomé and Príncipe remains the solid proof that national prevention and international assistance go hand in hand and can transform hope into results and can show the path forward for many others. Thank you very much.
Avant de céder la parole à Madame la Ministre,
Before giving the floor to the Minister, I'd like to remind delegations that they are invited to provide a copy of their statement to e-statements@un.org in order to ensure that interpretation will be accurate. Minister, you have the floor.
C'est bon?
Oui.
OK. Monsieur le Président, Excellent.
Chair, Excellencies, distinguished members of the Peacebuilding Commission, representatives of the United Nations system, ladies and gentlemen. It is a profound honor for me to address this commission on behalf of the government and the people of São Tomé and Príncipe bringing a simple but powerful message. Prevention works when there is national leadership, international partnership, and sustainable commitment. I wish to express our deepest thanks to His Excellency Ambassador Omar Hilal for his leadership of the Peacebuilding Commission and for the sustained attention that this body has devoted to our country. For a small island developing state in the Gulf of Guinea, the engagement of this commission is not only valuable, it really is catalytic in ensuring that prevention remains visible and prioritized. I also wish to acknowledge the Joint Strategic Assessment Mission conducted by the United Nations and the Economic Community of Central African States in April 2023. At the request of the São Tomé authorities, which laid the analytical foundation for the reform journey that we are undertaking. We are also grateful to ECAS for its continued regional partnership, including on the Women, Peace and Security agenda, where São Tomé and Príncipe is now actively aligning with the ECAS Regional Action Plan on gender integration in conflict prevention. Excellencies, you will recall that in May 2025, this Commission convened an ambassadorial-level meeting on São Tomé and Príncipe, at which His Excellency President Carlos Villanova presented our national conflict prevention strategy 2025-2029, making São Tomé and Príncipe the first country in the world to present such a strategy to the Peacebuilding Commission. The joint statement signed on the 3rd of June 2025 by our President and the Chair of the Peacebuilding Commission recognized this strategy as a fundamental framework to guide peacebuilding efforts and committed both parties to review the progress achieved. I stand before you today to honor that commitment. We came to this commission with a promise that São Tomé and Príncipe would translate its national vision into concrete action. Today, I am here to report that we have delivered. In less than 2 years, we have transformed vision into action, diagnosis into reform, and commitment into concrete results. Allow me to illustrate what this has meant in practice. The investment of $2.5 million from the Peace Building Fund's investment in the country 2024-2026, implemented jointly by UNODC, UNDP, and OHCHR, has produced results that are concrete and nationally owned. Drawing on the 2023 joint UN-ECAS strategic assessment, which identified 5 structural bottlenecks contributing to fragility. PBF Phase 1 has addressed all 5 of these 5 bottlenecks. We are honored to announce that São Tomé and Príncipe has completed its first security sector review report. In our independent history, an unprecedented national milestone and a concrete demonstration of our commitment to reform, transparency, and conflict prevention. Led by the Prime Minister's Office and conducted through an inclusive, nationally led consultative process with the armed forces, police, civil society, women and youth. The Security Sector Review Report was approved by the Council of Ministers on the 8th of May 2026 and publicly released at a national press conference on the 26th of May. This report constitutes the principal roadmap for the reform of our security sector. One that would not exist without the Peacebuilding Fund. The process through which the National Conflict Prevention Strategy and the Security Sector Review Report were conceived is in itself one of their greatest merits. These initiatives did not result from an isolated technical exercise, but from a genuinely national, inclusive and participatory process. The government established 2 national committees dedicated respectively to analysing the structural causes of instability and to diagnosing the security sector, and promoted a broad consultative process involving state institutions, defence and security forces, representatives of political parties, the Bar Association, civil society organisations, including women's organisations, human rights defenders, and representatives of persons with disabilities. The diversity and representativeness of these participants demonstrate the country's commitment to an inclusive, consensus-based approach. This process was subsequently deepened through specialized dialogues on civil military relations and the gender, peace and security agenda, bringing together civilian and military actors in an environment of trust and cooperation. It is precisely this national ownership, grounded in participation, transparency and shared responsibility, that gives legitimacy and sustainability to the reforms underway. These are not reforms designed for citizens. They are reforms built with citizens and for the future of São Tomé and Príncipe. Beyond the security sector review report, PBF support has catalyzed an unprecedented period of institutional and legislative progress, including a draft maritime crimes and anti-piracy bill adopted by the Council of Ministers and submitted to Parliament. Draft laws on the National Independent Human Rights Commission presented to the National Assembly. The country's first digital platform for providing legal information based on artificial intelligence, and this is a major advance for Africa. This platform offers the victims of domestic violence a secure and anonymous channel for pointing out these cases to the police. This reform, these reforms are not administrative changes. These are instruments that enable women to denounce violence, report violence securely, and enable citizens to ensure that their access to justice more quickly. So that the institutions can more effectively respond to the needs of the population. The first analysis of, gap analysis of the UNCAC has been produced with 12 actionable recommendations informing legislative priorities. And the deployment of an electronic case management system has been deployed for criminal cases. These achievements demonstrate a fundamental truth that modest, well-targeted investments in small states like São Tomé and Príncipe can produce disproportionately powerful results that would cost exponentially more in larger, more complex settings. Excellencies, progress is real, but the foundations remain fragile. The Security Sector Review Report has diagnosed the structural situations that have contributed to the instability and the grave events of the 25th of November 2022, notably overlapping institutional mandates, weak oversight mechanisms, political interference in security appointments, and the erosion of public trust. These situations were identified and confirmed, but they have not yet been cured. The need to continue reforms is confirmed not only by institutional analysis, but also by the perceptions of citizens themselves. According to the data from Afrobarometer from 2024, 75.6% of São Tomeans express their dissatisfaction with the security services provided by the state. However, 78.9% continue to turn to the police when they need protection. These figures reveal both a challenge as well as an opportunity. Despite the limitations identified, citizens continue to recognize the state as the principal guarantor of their security and maintain high expectations regarding its capacity to respond. It is precisely this distance between the expectations of citizens and the capacity of institutions to respond to them that our reform agenda seeks to reduce, strengthening public trust, institutional effectiveness, and accountability. To leave this work half done is to risk it all unraveling. Laws that have been drafted need to be implemented. Institutions that have been strengthened need to be consolidated. Capacities that have been built need to take root. The Security Sector Review Report must now be translated into a national security strategy, a national community security plan, constitutional and legislative reform, and the progressive professionalization of our forces. These are the reforms that will determine whether our democratic journey endures. Excellencies, for an island nation, a lighthouse represents far more than a physical structure. It represents guidance, security, and resilience in the face of uncertainty. São Tomé and Príncipe seeks to play that role in the Gulf of Guinea, that of an example of democratic stability in a region confronted with complex governance and security challenges. Over recent decades, we have consistently chosen the path of dialogue, free elections, the rule of law, and institutional reform. Preserving and strengthening this trajectory requires continuous investment in conflict prevention, justice, and good governance. This is a light that must not be allowed to dim. On the contrary, this is the moment to strengthen it for the benefit of São Tomé and Príncipe, the region, and the international community. The consolidation of reforms in São Tomé and Príncipe is the investment needed to ensure that this light continues to illuminate the path of democratic stability in the Gulf of Guinea.
A concept note for the Peacebuilding Fund 2.0 has been crafted and shared with the Peacebuilding Support Office. PBF 2.0 builds directly on the results achieved by PBF 1.0. It contains a proposed program of approximately $1.6 million over a 2-year period. It is focused on achieving 2 outcomes. First, the implementation of the Security Sector Review Report through strengthened governance, oversight, and human rights accountability, as well as 2, the consolidation of people-centered justice reforms, including digital innovation, anti-corruption capacity, as well as access to justice. What's critical is that the government of São Tomé and Príncipe is demonstrating its own commitment to this process through concrete contributions it's making. We've developed a national concept note as well as an institutional framework for our very first national action plan under Security Council Resolution 1325. It is aligned with the ECAS Regional Action Plan. It also builds on our designation. We've been designated as the African Union's focal point for women, peace, and security. This occurred back in June 2025. It is also underpinned by a national legislative commitment to gender parity that has already seen 40% of seats way for that statement and questions. I now give the floor to Australia.
Thank you very much, Chair, for convening this meeting today. And Australia also thanks the briefers, and we extend particular thanks to Your Excellency, Minister Cravid, for your participation today. Australia commends the government of São Tomé and Príncipe for its leadership and continued engagement with the peace-building condition. We welcome progress on implementing your national conflict prevention strategy, which is now well into its first year. This strategy reflects the country's commitment to preventative and inclusive peace building. São Tomé and Príncipe's experience is especially valuable at a time of growing international focus on national prevention strategies. Together with partners, Australia is pleased to have developed voluntary evidence-based policy guidance on these strategies to be launched during Peacebuilding Week this year. In this regard, we welcome the Peacebuilding Commission's role as a platform for member states like São Tomé and Príncipe to share lessons that we've learnt from implementation of prevention strategies and which will continue to inform best practice. In this context, we offer 3 reflections. First, Australia commends advances in justice and security sector reform, including the recent completion of the security sector review and ongoing efforts to create a justice system that's more effective, transparent, and citizen-oriented. Progress towards establishment of an independent National Human Rights Commission is also highly encouraging. We acknowledge the importance of implementing necessary structural reforms ahead of the July 2026 presidential election. Second, we welcome the strategy's focus on gender equality and enhancing women's participation and representation in leadership. We commend the significant progress already made, with women now comprising 40% of cabinet membership. Finally, we acknowledge the catalytic role of the Peacebuilding Fund in addressing critical resource gaps, but note that important challenges still remain. We encourage continued political, technical, and financial support to São Tomé and Príncipe's peacebuilding priorities aligned with its national strategy. As a long-standing donor to the Peacebuilding Fund, Australia remains committed to supporting nationally led peacebuilding efforts in São Tomé and Príncipe. I thank you.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Australia, I now give the floor to the representative of Egypt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Your Excellency, Ambassador Omar, for giving Egypt the floor. Egypt thanks all the briefers for their sober presentations and welcomes Her Excellency Mr. Cravid among us today. We are particularly encouraged by her emphasis on national ownership, inclusive participation, and understanding that prevention is not an emergency. São Tomé and Príncipe is not only the progress achieved, but the manner in which it was achieved. As Madam Minister rightly noted, the National Conflict Prevention Strategy and the Security Sector Review were not externally designed exercises. They emerged from a genuinely national, inclusive, and participatory process involving state institutions, security actors, civil society, women, and youth. This is precisely the kind of nationally owned peacebuilding that the Peacebuilding Commission has consistently sought to promote. Egypt considers São Tomé and Príncipe an important model for prevention, especially at a time when many discussions focus on responding to crises. São Tomé and Príncipe has demonstrated the value of investing early in prevention, institution building, and resilience. The country's experience reminds us that the prevention succeeds when national authorities define priorities, national institutions lead the implementation, and international partners align their support behind those priorities. We're also encouraged by the Minister's observation that the Peacebuilding Fund's contribution has been catalytic rather than merely financial. The achievements highlighted today, including the security sector review, the justice reforms, human rights initiatives, and institutional strengthening, demonstrate how targeted PBF support can unlock broader reform processes and create conditions for longer-term investments. This is an important lesson for all of us. The value of Peacebuilding Fund lies not only in the resources it provides, but in its ability to mobilize additional political, technical, and financial support behind nationally identified priorities. Mr. Chair, finally, the discussion today also highlights the importance of sustained support for security sector reform and justice institutions. In this regard, Egypt's welcome the strengthened role of the Peacebuilding and Peace Support Office following its recent restructuring. we believe that the PBPSO is now even better positioned to support member states in advancing nationally led reforms in areas such as security sector reform, rule of law, and justice. Also, today's discussion offers a practical demonstration of the type of country-specific engagement envisioned in the Peacebuilding Architecture Review 2025. In Egypt's view, supporting São Tomé and Príncipe through the Commission is not merely support to one country, but it's a concrete example of how we can implement many of the PBAR recommendations in practice, particularly by strengthening country-level impact, advancing prevention strategies, reinforcing national ownership, and enhancing coherence across the UN system and its partners. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Je remercie.
I thank the representative of Egypt for that intervention. I give the floor to the representative of Croatia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for convening this meeting and for the follow-up to São Tomé and Príncipe's landmark presentation of its national conflict prevention strategy in May last year. We warmly welcome the Minister of Justice, Parliamentary Affairs and Women's Rights and thank all the briefers. The strategy is a significant achievement. It strengthens national resilience, sharpens institutional preparedness, and reinforces social cohesion. It also reflects strong national ownership and a clear commitment to sustaining peace. By uniting government, civil society, and partners around shared priorities, and by engaging youth and women, it has broadened the inclusiveness and legitimacy of prevention efforts. We commend the concrete progress reported today. São Tomé and Príncipe has improved risk analysis and early warning capacities, integrating systematic monitoring of political, social, and economic stressors, and reformed its security sector. Prevention is increasingly embedded across justice, social protection, and local governance, helping address structural vulnerabilities more coherently. Support from the UN system, including the Peacebuilding Fund and Peace and Development Advisors, has strengthened national capacities, as has the political accompaniment of the Peacebuilding Commission. But challenges remain. Limited institutional resources and technical capacity slow full implementation and sustained analysis. Coordination across ministries and between national and local levels is uneven, and the mutual accountability mechanisms need further consolidation. Financing is a persistent constraint. São Tomé and Príncipe has used PBF support effectively, but predictable, risk-tolerant funding is essential to scale prevention. Climate shocks and economic volatility, as well as youth immigration, continue to generate pressures that can undermine social cohesion without long-term integrated responses. The Peacebuilding Commission can add real value. Sustained political accompaniment, stronger partner coordination, and mobilization on financing aligned with national priorities. It can spotlight structural risks, youth unemployment, governance gaps, climate pressures, and promote integrated peace development climate responses. And it can advocate for predictable, risk-tolerant funding, including through the Peacebuilding Fund, to reinforce national ownership and accelerate implementation. We are ready to do our part, and in particular to support upcoming elections in July and September to reinforce peace, prosperity, and stability in São Tomé and Príncipe. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Je remercie la représentante de la
I thank the representative of Croatia, and I now give the floor to the ambassador and the DPO of Colombia.
Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Chair. I greet you as chair and guide of this commission. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. Greetings to Minister Kravid, and from Colombia's presidency this June, we do salute your words based talking about prevention and lessons learned, and based on inclusion, where we see that the country is speaking together, represented by everyone. That is how you can prevent and how you can move towards peace. Colombia has learnt a lot of lessons in this regard, and we still have a lot to do in our national picture, but thank you for sharing with us your experiences. Prevention is really important, and we believe that the Peacebuilding Fund has done great work with the country to promote an exchange of lessons learned in the area of peace building, and thank goodness that those lessons have reached various countries on the African continent. And I think that we can continue to have a conversation about this, how we can empower key sectors that you mentioned, Minister. And thank you for stressing that, particularly when it comes to women, peace and security, and how women are not secondary actors, they are the main actors, and they play a key role in the whole process of prevention, because that is what is at the basis of the heart of social cohesion. I'd like to invite you to participate with your delegation at the signature event on the 17th of June of the Colombian presidency, dealing with the issue of women, peace and security. I'm sure that São Tomé and Príncipe will be able to make a very important contribution to that debate. So once again, congratulations on everything you're doing, and Minister, you can count on our full cooperation. Thank you.
Je remercie.
I thank the ambassador and DPR of Colombia. I now give the floor to the representative of Uganda.
Thank you, Chair. Uganda welcomes the convening of this very important ambassadorial-level meeting on São Tomé and Príncipe. We thank you, Mr. Chair, as well as all the distinguished briefers, including the Honorable Minister of Justice, Ms. Vera Maria Cravid, and our brothers and sisters from ECAS and the civil society for their important presentations. We wish to commend São Tomé and Príncipe for their pioneering leadership in peace building as the first country that presented to this commission their national conflict prevention strategy, which is a powerful testament to their ownership and commitment to sustainable peace and democratic governance. We also welcome the inclusive national consultations undertaken in 2025, including through ensuring the voices of women, youth, and civil society remain at the heart of this strategy. We commend the progress so far that has been made in establishing key national structures in São Tomé and Príncipe, including the National Human Rights Commission. We are confident this will promote greater efforts for peace building and support, including implementation of the roadmap for the national prevention strategy. We welcome all the respective technical capacity and assistance that has been rendered to the government of São Tomé through the PBC, PBSO, and the support from the Peace Building Fund. We echo the calls for continued support from the Peace Building Fund, without which the provision of the necessary financial and technical support will be difficult to realize the timely implementation of programs and roadmaps for peace building in the country. Mr. Chair, the role of women and youth engagement at national and local levels in peace building initiatives remains important through participation in peace building initiatives to reduce the likelihood of their involvement in conflict and instability. This brings the agenda to the communities most affected by conflict. National conflict prevention and strategy action should be aligned with programs for women and youth. We emphasize the importance of national ownership, the need to address the existing financing gaps for ensuring an adequate, predictable, and sustained financing for peace-building activities in São Tomé and Príncipe. As I conclude, I commend the government of São Tomé for the progress that they continue to register in their progress, and we strongly encourage continued visibility of the various peace-building activities in the country as may be requested by the government, and commit to encouraging continued unity and dedication to consolidating peace, justice, and stability for all the people of São Tomé and Príncipe. We extend our best wishes and full support to them on their journey to peace and security for their people. I thank you.
Je remercie.
I thank the representative of Uganda. I now give the floor to the representative of India.
I thank you, Mr. Chair. At the outset, I thank you for convening today's this important meeting. India expresses its gratitude to Honorable Minister of Justice, Parliamentary Affairs and Women's Rights of São Tomé and Príncipe for providing updates on the implementation of conflict prevention strategy for 2025-29, including key achievements, challenges, and priority areas for further action. We also thank the other briefers for their insightful remarks. Mr. Chair, peace building is most effective when it is nationally owned, inclusive, and responsive to local needs and priorities. Additionally, national government priorities rather than donor priorities should guide the development and implementation of peace-building strategies. In this regard, we commend the efforts of São Tomé and Príncipe to strengthen national institutions and invest in building national capacities and socio-economic resilience. India welcomes the efforts of the people and the government of São Tomé and Príncipe to develop and implement their national peace-building strategy. We recall that in May 2025, São Tomé and Príncipe became the first country to present its national conflict prevention strategy for the period 2025-29 to the Peacebuilding Commission. We note that the government has advanced key priorities under the strategy, which aims to address the structural drivers of fragility and strengthen public confidence in state institutions. India recognizes the finalization of the security sector review in April this year as a key milestone, providing a comprehensive reform roadmap for the armed forces and police. We also note other institutional advancements, including efforts to expand access to justice and enhance maritime security. We note that the Peacebuilding Fund has provided $2.4 million in catalytic funding to support the national priorities of São Tomé and Príncipe, including the implementation of ongoing justice and security sector reforms. We encourage additional assistance to the country to close the critical funding gap for implementing its peace-building priorities. Mr. Chair, India's partnership with fellow countries of the Global South is based on mutual trust and on building instruments of empowerment and institutional resilience. We have been partnering with the UN with regard to development assistance in countries of Global South, primarily through two facilities. First, the India-UN Partnership Fund with a total corpus of $150 million. And second, the India, Brazil, and South Africa Trust Fund. Both these facilities are demand-driven and managed by the UN Office of South-South Cooperation. Completed projects under these two facilities include one in the health sector in São Tomé and Príncipe. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, India underlines that we will continue to act as a force multiplier for all peace-building efforts rooted in national ownership and leadership. I thank you.
Je remercie le
I thank the permanent. I thank the delegate of India. I now give the floor to the representative of Germany.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor and for convening us today. National prevention strategies and approaches are a crucial element of building and sustaining peace. We thank São Tomé and Príncipe for this update on the National Conflict Prevention Strategy, which underlines the country's strong commitment to prevention. We also commend the exemplary role and resilience of your country's democracy in the region. In this regard, we thank the government of São Tomé and Príncipe for welcoming an EU election observer mission for the upcoming presidential and parliamentary elections, and are glad to contribute to the deployment of 2 German observers to this mission. Strong democratic institutions and inclusive political participation are key elements of effective prevention and contribute significantly to long-term resilience. Effective prevention also requires addressing the root causes of conflict, including environmental and socioeconomic drivers of vulnerability. An inspiring example in case is the Blue Action Fund in São Tomé and Príncipe. Through the designation of marine protection areas, the project contributes to protecting biodiversity while enhancing local livelihoods through the promotion of sustainable fishing practices, thereby strengthening community resilience and supporting the long-term objectives of conflict prevention and sustainable peace. You can count on our continued support and collaboration for this important project. To conclude, I would like to thank the government of São Tomé and Príncipe for their continued engagement with the Peacebuilding Commission and their firm commitment to peace building and prevention in the region. I hope that we will follow up on today's meeting and continue our exchange on how the UN peacebuilding architecture and the international community can continue to support the implementation of this national conflict prevention strategy. I thank you.
Je remercie la représentante.
I thank the representative of Germany. I now give the floor to the representative of the African Union.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish to thank you, Mr. Chair, for convening this important meeting. I also thank the Minister of Justice, Parliamentary Affairs and Women's Rights of São Tomé and Príncipe and all the briefers for their valuable insights. The African Union welcomes the progress achieved by São Tomé and Príncipe in implementing its National Conflict Prevention Strategy 2025-2029. São Tomé and Príncipe has demonstrated commendable leadership and commitment to conflict prevention, democratic governance, and sustainable peace building. We are encouraged by the inclusive and nationally owned nature of the strategy. The African Union also welcomes the completion of the security sector reform in April 2026, which provides a roadmap for reforming the armed forces and police. We also welcome continued efforts to strengthen the rule of law, expand access to justice, enhance maritime security, and establish an independent National Human Rights Commission. These milestones help build accountable and responsive institutions. Mr. Chair, the upcoming presidential, legislative, and local elections represent an important opportunity to further consolidate democratic governance and strengthen social cohesion in São Tomé and Príncipe. The African Union recalls its long-standing commitment to supporting the democratic process in São Tomé and Príncipe through the deployment of election observation missions. The AU has consistently observed parliamentary, local, and presidential elections in the country, including most recently the 2021 presidential election, for which it deployed an election observation mission. These missions reflect the Union's continued commitment to credible, transparent, and peaceful electoral process. Building on this partnership, the African Union stands ready to continue supporting the country's democratic institutions and electoral processes on the occasion of incoming elections this year. Mr. Chair, the African Union reaffirms its readiness to continue working closely with the São Tomean government and all relevant partners to advance sustainable peace and strengthen national resilience. It calls for sustained international engagement and enhanced support to ensure that peace-building gains are consolidated and that the country remains firmly on its path toward lasting stability, inclusive development, and democratic governance. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the African Union. I now give the floor to the representative of the European Union.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Minister, Excellencies, thank you for organizing today's meeting. And allow me also to express our appreciation for the presentations that were made earlier on, including on the progress on the National Prevention Strategy of São Tomé and Príncipe. The development of such strategies in collaboration with the UN and with the support from the Peacebuilding Fund illustrate very well how we can encourage such nationally owned conflict prevention initiatives. We see the fact that São Tomé and Príncipe is returning to the PBC today again this year as a sign of commitment to sustaining peace. It also illustrates how the PPC and the PBF jointly can reinforce national prevention efforts. From the EU side, we continue to support the São Tomé and Príncipe in the strengthening and consolidation of democratic governance and rule of law. We welcome the country's commitment to efforts to reform the justice and security sectors, as well as the progress made in establishing a National Human Rights Commission. Justice remains one of the main areas of EU cooperation with São Tomé and Príncipe, in close collaboration with Portugal. We encourage the national authorities to continue coordinating support from international partners in this domain. Chair, Excellencies, the government's commitment to democracy is important for the country and for the region, and it is crucial in this election year to maintain the course of democracy. At the government's invitation, the EU will deploy an election observation mission for both the presidential election in July, as well as the parliamentary and local elections coming later in September. We welcome the commitment demonstrated by the São Tomean authorities to implement key recommendations from the 2022 EU election observation mission to improve future electoral processes, and the EU and its member states supported the implementation of some of these recommendations through bilateral and thematic programs. Mr. Chair, in conclusion, the EU remains committed to supporting peace-building efforts in São Tomé and Príncipe, and we look forward to sustained engagement with the PPC. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the European Union. I now give the floor to the last speaker, observers, the representative of Canada.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you for convening this meeting today. Compliments to the minister and other speakers, all protocols observed. Canada applauds São Tomé and Príncipe's commitment to peace building, conflict prevention, and security sector reform, and commends the Peace Building Fund and ECOS for their lasting support to those efforts. As a donor to the Peace Building Fund and a longstanding member of the Peace Building Commission, Canada has long aligned its relations with São Tomé with the priority needs that the government has identified in its engagement with the PBC. Canada's High Commission in Nigeria coordinates much of our engagement with São Tomé. I am happy to note that they are nearing the award of a grant under the Canadian Fund for Local Initiatives to a São Tomean civil society organization in the thematic areas of rule of law, inclusive governance, democracy, and human rights. This aligns well with the work of the PBF there, and that enhances the effect of both our efforts and the PBF's. We also understand that the European Union is preparing an EU election observation mission for the elections later this year. Global Affairs Canada has allocated funding to recruit a Canadian expert to participate in that EU mission. Our High Commission in Abuja is planning another visit to São Tomé in early 2027 to conduct further diplomacy and monitor implementation of our civil society grant. Canada is grateful for our cordial relations with your government and for your sustained engagement with this commission. Thank you.
Je remercie le représentant.
I thank the representative of Canada, who was the last speaker on the list for this morning. Now I have the great pleasure of giving the floor to the Assistant Secretary General for Peacekeeping, Madame Speha. You have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair.
I welcome the decision of the government of São Tomé and Príncipe to come again to the PBC to update on their peacebuilding experiences, 1 year after their presentation to the PBC on their national conflict prevention strategy. This marks the third time that São Tomé and Príncipe has addressed this commission. Their active participation builds on the spirit of the 2025 Peacebuilding Architecture Review and its resolutions, which clearly underscore the importance for the Commission to have regular follow-up with the countries that it considers. I'd like to begin by warmly thanking the Minister, Her Excellency, for her presentation, and of course extensive to the other presenters as well. And I'd like in particular to congratulate her government and the citizens of São Tomé and Príncipe for the progress that has already been achieved, in which she so elegantly described. I also welcome the priorities that she's laid out for all of us and the reflections that she has given us. It will be very, very useful for the road ahead. I think that her remarks have provided very clear evidence of the country's commitment towards implementing its national conflict prevention strategy, which, as a number of you have mentioned, spans 2025 to 2029, with a strong focus on justice and security sector reforms, national capacities, and responses to current economic constraints and emerging risks. A notable achievement over the past year, which the Minister outlined and others have also reinforced, indeed has been the development of São Tomé and Príncipe's first ever comprehensive security sector review. I'm very pleased to say that the Peacebuilding and Peace Support Office was able to provide assistance for this process through its Institutional Development Advisor Program. This program provided an expert that who worked alongside the Technical Committee for Security Sector Reform of São Tomé and Príncipe, and thus helping in the elaboration of this very important security sector review. Beyond providing an assessment of the country's security and defense institutions, this review helped identify structural vulnerabilities and reform priorities that are essential to strengthening resilience, improving governance, and addressing potential drivers of instability. As such, we believe that it serves as a very important building block for the implementation of the National Conflict Prevention Strategy, and it really reinforces the close link between effective security sector governance and nationally owned conflict prevention efforts. The ongoing engagement of the Peacebuilding Commission and the catalytic financing from the Peacebuilding Fund, both of which many of you have referenced, and the fact that this has been working in tandem with the UN country team and the São Tomé and Príncipe authorities and civil society, has also contributed to tangible progress at the national level. Building on the vision of the Pact for the Future, the adoption and implementation of the National Conflict Prevention Strategy reaffirms the centrality of nationally owned approaches in advancing long-term stability. This progress, as we heard earlier, has also been supported by the joint engagement and political accompaniment of UNOCA and ECAS, whose role is providing the necessary regional coherence from a political and strategic perspective, facilitating the translation of technical foundations into sustained institutional reforms, and bridging global mandates with regional, national, and local realities. As we reach the end of this session, I would like to particularly emphasize the importance, as we see it, for continued progress in São Tomé and Príncipe of a number of factors. The essential political commitment of the government, the inclusive nature of the reforms involving broad sectors of society, including women and youth, and the ongoing international support that is manifested here in the PBC, and the necessity of resource mobilization. In the case of São Tomé and Príncipe, as a small island developing state with fragilities linked to its specific context, as well as exposure to external economic and environmental shocks, even relatively modest investments, as we have seen, can have a meaningful and catalytic impact. Excellencies, this work comes at a time, this work comes at a particularly timely moment as the United Nations continues to strengthen its peacebuilding architecture. The establishment of the new Peacebuilding and Peace Support Office, PBPSO, as an early result of the Secretary General's UN 80 reforms and nestled within DPPA and DPO, reflects the organization's commitment to enhancing comprehensive support for nationally led prevention and peacebuilding efforts by bringing together policy, financing, operational and specialized expertise, including on security sector governance and reform and the rule of law. PBPSO, together with other UN and international partners, is well positioned to support countries such as São Tomé and Príncipe translate prevention strategies into concrete action, mobilize sustained international support, and strengthen the link between governance reforms, institution building, and long-term resilience. The experience of São Tomé and Príncipe demonstrates the value of this integrated approach led by this Peacebuilding Commission, where investments in conflict prevention and national capacities mutually reinforce one another in support of sustainable peace. In this respect, I'm pleased that the partnership between São Tomé and Príncipe and the PBC reaffirms the Commission's role as the central platform for sustaining political engagement, mobilizing international support, and fostering coherent partnerships in support of peacebuilding priorities and delivering concrete results. I'm also pleased to highlight, as a number of you also have, the catalytic role of the Peacebuilding Fund, working in close partnership with São Tomé and Príncipe, with this PBC, with various UN entities and other stakeholders. Its initial investment of $2.5 million US helped lay the foundations for a comprehensive reform agenda in the justice and security sectors and the development of the first national conflict prevention strategy of São Tomé. And I was very happy that so many of you underscored, and I think it should be, and I imagine it is, a point of pride for São Tomé and Príncipe that your country, Madam Minister, was the first one to bring a national prevention strategy to this commission since the adoption of the Pact for the future. I believe you are an excellent model for other countries, and I really hope that other countries will follow your leadership in that respect. As we've heard from Her Excellency the Minister, sustained international engagement will remain essential to consolidate the gains and maintain momentum behind the government's reform agenda. I encourage donors and partners to support the implementation of the security sector review. Likewise, our combined support to the justice sector will be important to achieving our collective peace-building goals, including by facilitating greater trust, inclusivity, and access to justice for the population of São Tomé and Príncipe. I wanted here, Mr. Chair, to quickly address several questions with respect to the role of the Peacebuilding Fund going forward. As Madam Minister mentioned, they are putting forward for consideration a second proposal for support from the PBF. I also am very pleased to have had the privilege of speaking with Madam Minister and the permanent mission here yesterday on their future plans and on possible additional support from PBPSO, including the PBF. And we hope to continue this dialogue, always in close coordination with the Peacebuilding Commission. I understand that there will be a new resident coordinator starting her role in São Tomé and Príncipe in the middle of July. This will be very helpful for us and I believe for the government to continue the conversation and to see very concretely how we can continue to support the country in these areas based on the country's nationally owned priorities. So we will continue that discussion, including, and this goes to the point of the permanent representative of Brazil, including trying to see how we can also engage the international financial institutions, again, always under the leadership of the government and other actors who can be supportive. I was very pleased to hear the various mentions of South-South triangular cooperation. Brazil, Colombia, and India, and in particular, made a point of raising that issue. I think we've discussed it a number of times in this commission. I believe there's incredible potential for South-South triangular cooperation, for greater South-South triangular cooperation for prevention and peace building, and that this commission can truly be an engine for such solidarity. In terms of the PBF, which the distinguished representative of Colombia also mentioned, and more broadly PBPSO, we would be very interested in seeing how we can further stimulate and support South-South triangular cooperation for prevention and peace building with all of you. So this is certainly a strand that we will try to look at very closely, and again would welcome your support and your views on that. I also again wanted to underline the incredibly important role of the Peacebuilding Commission. Of course, its political accompaniment, its role as a platform for exchanges of experiences and best practices, but also for its support role in terms of resource mobilization. So again, we need to align all of these tools to see how we can help countries such as São Tomé and Príncipe that have demonstrated such clear and continued political commitment to the reforms that have been outlined and to their prevention efforts. So we will definitely continue in this spirit. I would like to also mention at the same time that in terms of the PBF, and we were briefing the Commission on this year's strategy and priorities in March, that the PBF has been receiving less voluntary funding this year than it has in recent years. And even with assessed contributions, we are not able to cover all of the demands that so many member states are making of the fund. The Secretary General recently sent out a letter to all member states asking them to please consider additional contributions to the fund. I am reiterating that call because we do want to be able to help as much as possible the countries that come to us for that catalytic financing that we try to use very judiciously to support their priorities, but also to support bringing on other larger sources of financing, including as appropriate and as possible bringing in the private sector for certain types of support. So finally, Votre Excellence, notre Président,
Excellency, Chair,
by saying that the experience of São Tomé and Príncipe demonstrates that early investment in nationally owned prevention efforts can help lay the foundations for lasting peace and resilience, further reinforcing the central message of the Peacebuilding Architecture Review and its resolutions, that early nationally led prevention efforts, backed by flexible and sustained support, are essential to building resilient institutions and sustaining peace. Again, I want to close by thanking very sincerely São Tomé and Príncipe in the presence of their minister and the permanent mission as well, for the country's willingness to continue to share its peacebuilding priorities with all of us, with this Peacebuilding Commission and beyond. I would like
remarks. We still have a few minutes left, and I'll give the floor once again to the Minister to respond to the questions that have been put. And if we still have some time left, we'll give the floor as well to Mr.
I think that the questions all had a similar thrust to them. Necessary to provide security guarantees for the people of our country. I do believe that with your assistance, we'll continue to make headway on your cooperation. Hopefully, you can help us to undertake the reforms which we need at São Tomé and Príncipe. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I cede the floor. Chair, thank you very much, Minister. I'm not sure if the General is with us, General Musaji. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Please go ahead, says the chair. Yes, very quickly, 3 quick points. The richness of our exchanges, the contribution, the input of the various speakers who took the floor, and also, without a doubt, the intervention of the Minister of São Tomé and Príncipe, all of the above attest to the what can we do to translate into concrete deeds the support that São Tomé absolutely needs? Because all of these concepts we've discussed, we need to flesh them out. They are rooted in political resolve, in this vision, a country which is rising up to achieve greater peace, greater stability. To create the necessary democratic space. That's something we've all recognized. As well. Third, Mr. Chairman. Our colleague, the new SRSG, Ambassador Swev, will be taking up his post in the 3rd week of June, so imminently. He will also be assisting the electoral process in São Tomé and Príncipe. He will hit the ground running and assist all of the efforts that we heard about this afternoon, or rather this morning, your time. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and we wish everyone every success in their work. Chair, thank you, Special Representative of the Secretary General. I now give the floor back to General Musaji. I see that he's still connected from Libreville. You have the floor, General.
Ah, ouais, elle était là. Hein. Mon général, vous êtes toujours là?
General, are you there? Can you hear us?
Là, je vois que ce n'est pas...
I don't think we can connect and hear from the General. So, Excellencies, Minister, that brings me to the end. Oh, are you there, General?
Merci pour la parole.
Ouais, allez-y.
Go ahead. If you could keep your comments brief, please. Thank you, and I'd like to thank everyone here at this session. I would like to thank the chair for inviting ECAS to this meeting. I would also like to reiterate the willingness of our department to follow up on the support member states are providing to São Tomé and Príncipe. And our international electoral observation mission will soon be traveling to São Tomé and Príncipe. Thank you for your kind attention and your interest in the work of ECAS. Thank you very much. Chair, thank you ever so much, General. Madam Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of this meeting, which I'm convinced will go down in history as an important moment, a time when everyone here at the United Nations advanced the cause of prevention. Thank you very much to everybody who participated in this 3rd PBC meeting with São Tomé and Príncipe. Madam Minister, Vera Maria Assunção Gomes Cravid, thank you very much for the clarity and the frank nature of your intervention. It's worth reminding everyone that the solidarity between neighbors is the front line of prevention. We wish to thank SRSG Parfait for his expose on regional and international, I would add, efforts From our discussions, there were 3 key points that stood out. First of all, the international community must provide unswerving, predictable support over the long haul. There is no definitive victory for prevention. We have to keep fighting for it day in, day out. Second message, the commitments made today, the pledges, must be translated into deeds. This is why the chair's summary will reflect your messages and recommendations. It will serve as a shared roadmap for the follow-up on our commitments. Third, no one will be able to tackle these challenges alone. Therefore, bilateral partners and international institutions as well a decisive period, the PBC will stand together with São Tomé and Príncipe. São Tomé and Príncipe, we've made a promise to them, and it's up to us to stand by them as they make good on that promise. We must invest in our future, in prevention, in the future that we will craft together. I'd like to respond to the call issued by General Musaji. He asked for us to continue supporting São Tomé and Príncipe. Rest assured, General, that we will continue doing so. The PBC will be able to, and I'm convinced should, continue working with São Tomé and Príncipe, counting on them, and vice versa. We share this hope for the future. This meeting stands adjourned. I thank you. you.